YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back after week 11 of the NFL, recapping every game through Sunday. Not as crazy as last week, maybe, but still some crazy games. Obviously, some wild outcomes there, and we're going to break it down real quick here. Throughout the week, we got power rankings, predictions, score predictions, plenty more we cover every single week, and we have extra content on the Patreon, playoff predictions, score predictions, 2020 NFL mock drafts, all of that part of one package deal and updated every single week. Link in the description, patreon.com/thegoathouse. You support us and you get extra content there, so please check it out. 40K, that's our subscriber goal by the end of the year, so please subscribe to the channel. Like I said, full NFL content, and it doesn't stop when the season's over. We got full free agency and NFL draft coverage as well. We never stop here at the GOAT House. Please subscribe. Click that like button. We really would appreciate that. Real quick, we'll talk about the Thursday game. I'm kind of sick of this game already. I made a video talking about the whole incident at the end of this game and what I think the suspension should be if they got it right. But basically, the Browns completely outplayed the Steelers, mainly because Mason Rudolph was really off his game and there was a lot of injuries happening for the Steelers. But it felt like the Browns should have been outplaying them, but I don't know if the score really showed that. You know, it was 14-7 most of the game. The Browns got to do a little better job executing, putting teams away. They may be in trouble without Myles Garrett, but the schedule the rest of the way, pretty soft. So who knows? They play the Steelers again in a couple weeks already, so that should be pretty interesting. Don't want to talk about that game really anymore. Then we've already had Cowboys and Lions. You know, really, it was a lock for me this week that the Cowboys would win, and it was a little more interesting. You know, they controlled the game the whole way except for the very beginning. So we saw the Lions go down there and score. Bo Scarborough actually scored right away. It's good to see him getting in on some action there. You know, you would like to think he is better than some running backs that get chances, in the NFL throughout this year. Driscoll played a pretty solid game. You know, he had his moments against the Bears where it was pretty solid, and that was kind of his first game getting thrown in there. And that was when he was on the Bengals. He got some reps last year. They tried to switch him to receiver. It didn't work out. They cut him. Went back to quarterback where he belongs. So he played pretty well. Just not enough, I guess. But 27 points against the Cowboys is pretty impressive. The Cowboys are just playing some with a better team here, as they should be. So that's really why they won the game. Dak Prescott played lights out. My problem with the Cowboys is you just can't have everybody on the same page at the same time. There's a few teams that are always like that. The Cowboys, that's a big problem for them right now. It's either the offense. The last few years, I'd say, it was either the offenses on playing top tier or the defenses. It's one or the other. Throughout this year, the offense has been pretty solid. The defense giving up some points, giving up some big plays, some big yards. And on paper, it should be better than it has been. Honestly, you should not be giving up 27 points. You shouldn't be, without the Lions having a run game too. You should not be giving up what you gave up to Jeff Driscoll. Really shouldn't. At the end of the day, they won the game. Dak Prescott played good. Amari Cooper was, I don't want to say off his game, still think very highly of him, but they kind of figured out a way to slow him down. And then they got, Gallup and Randall Cobb going, so that's a good thing. Just couldn't get Zeke going, though. So in that sense, too, on the offense is really getting going. You even got other receivers going when Amari Cooper's not, but somehow they just can't get Zeke going right now. It can be that much better. The good news is it'll be that much better if he does get going. The bad news is why can't they really get him going? It's only been a few games, I feel like, this year that he really got going. But yeah, I'm a little scared about the Cowboys defense, honestly, the last couple of weeks. The Lions, again, good job to Driscoll. It's not a game they were supposed to be really this close in. They did a good job slowing down Amari Cooper. You put big play Slay on him, and he plays a pretty solid game. It's just, that's kind of the story of the Lions. You kind of shut down a top-tier receiver for teams, but then somebody else just kind of goes off, and that was kind of what happened there. But it's just too tough for the Lions to win that game, honestly. So I wonder what's going on with Stafford. We'll see. It sounded like he was almost going to play against the Bears, and now it's going to that he may miss multiple weeks. Now people are starting to think that maybe they can just hold him out for the rest of the year. I don't know if they do that, but interesting topic. Next game was the Jags and the Colts. I thought this would be the closest game on the week. So I was wrong about that, but I did pick the Colts. Very impressive game for the Colts. I can't tell if it was more of an impressive game for the Colts or more of a disappointing game from the Jags. I'd say probably more of a disappointing game from the Jags, honestly. They started off pretty well, like right off the bat. The Jags get down there and score. And that's where I'm getting a little worried, even though it's early. But the Colts did an excellent job game planning for this game. You see the coaching staff differences. To me, I know people can disagree with me. It's just kind of how I felt. It's kind of my opinion here. The Jags just didn't seem like there was like no life in the team. Felt like there was no energy this week. I don't know. That's just my takeaway from that. So that's a problem, and that's where I think they're going to have to make a coaching change, a staff change in the offseason. Completely revamp that. I think. I hope they don't like promote anybody. I'm not. I wouldn't call me a supporter, but I've always kind of liked Marrone. I've disagreed with him a lot. Obviously, he hasn't been one of the better coaches at all, but I've never really said this guy needs to go. Like he's doing a bad job. I've never been one of those people on him because I kind of like the guy. He's a likable guy. But I just think it's time to move on at this point just because the energy on the team right now, and we've seen it at times last year too. It's just not really there. It's not really there. And I think Nick Foles will get going. He had his moments. I would like to see more shots downfield. But the defense, the problem was the run defense, obviously. Not worried about their pass defense or their pass rush, I should say. But the run defense. Before the season started, I talked about how bad this linebacker unit was, probably the worst in football, and I got ripped for it, probably by Jaguars fans, so it's expected, I guess. But, you can see it in a game like this. We saw it all year. But the linebacker unit is rough. It's basically Myles Jack kind of carrying the group, but at the same time, I'm not thrilled with Myles Jack either. I wasn't really thrilled about him last year. I think, they definitely can get better at the positions there at the linebacker spot. I know it's tough losing Telvin Smith, but they just could not stop the run. Marlon Mack was having a day. And then he goes down, and Jonathan Williams comes in, and he has a day. And then you see Naheem Hines even, the fact that how many tackles did he break on that touchdown? That's not a guy you should be, letting get through there. It was kind of just, I don't know if they had full effort at that point. But, credit to the game plan of the Colts, winning with just the run game for the most part. I do credit Brissett. He was able to, avoid some sacks, roll out of the pocket, just coming off an injury that it wasn't a minor injury, I'll tell you that. So, very impressive that he's able to do that when he needed to. They didn't need him to do that a bunch, which was great. That's why the game plan was great. The defensive side, holding them to 13 points was great. The secondary was really impressive to me. Really impressive for the most part. The whole secondary. We talk about the weakness of the other safety spot. Other than Malik Hooker. People were mad they didn't go get Landon Collins or Adrian Amos, and I applaud them for not overspending on those guys. And you draft two safeties. Kahari Willis and then Marvell Tell, who I liked a lot. I put on his tape during the offseason. I loved his game, and I thought he'd be a more of impact by now. And you see them recently start to use him more and more. And that's the guy that can kind of play all over. You can move that guy to corner, you can move him to safety, play him in the box. And he was it felt like he was everywhere in this game. So we see them getting better in these young spots already, and it looks good that they didn't make many mistakes in free agency. So it was a very well-executed game from the Colts. They got a big game against the Texans this week. It's tough that Marlon Mack now is hurt. So injuries have been tough for the Colts there in a big game. Like I said, coming up this week off the injuries. Big game for the Jags, too, division game there. So it should be an interesting week for the AFC South. The Bills and the Dolphins, 37-20. Bills win. Expected the Bills win. I did not expect them to score 37 points. So that was pretty impressive. But what I guess that part's not super impressive. It's impressive because they put up 37, but they played the Dolphins. But regardless who they played, what I am impressed about is Josh Allen here, because he didn't do anything absolutely wild or anything. He played a great game. And why I'm impressed is because you see early in the year we got him. The Bills are winning games early in the year. Obviously, they've been winning games for the most part this year. But he's kind of making things interesting with his turnovers. He's trying to be that hero. And then we see them lose the Patriots game kind of because he just kept turning the ball over when it was a tight game. So I think the Bills kind of decided, hey, we got a good enough team, good enough defense to win the games. We just need you to be a game manager. And we see them just kind of throwing little passes and him just not doing much. And they win games doing that. But they lost some games doing that because they just didn't have enough power on offense. There's just not enough power. So I've been kind of saying that, and they need to kind of meet in the middle there. And at the same time, you can't force a guy to be a game manager. That's just not that. It's just not the nature of Josh Allen. And this game, regardless who you played, he went out and kind of went back to playing Josh Allen ball, who he thought he could be, and made some big plays. And you love to see it. Regardless who they play, you love to see that. You like to gain that. It's just a confidence gainer there. It's a confidence gainer. It's a momentum builder. and it's something you like to see. John Brown had an excellent game. Loved that signing in the offseason. He had a good game. The Dawson Knox, still love that draft pick. He's been great. It's just a matter of staying healthy for him. They get Devin Singletary, getting going. The linebacker duo, maybe my favorite linebacker duo in football here. Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, just lights out in this game. Both of them absolutely everywhere in this game. And they got a lot of good pressure, too. They got a lot of good pressure throughout their defensive rotation. So you love to see that. It's a great team win here. The Dolphins just couldn't get any run game going. Obviously, it was pretty poor, pretty pathetic. Under 2 yards a carry. And Fitzpatrick constantly getting rushed, so you can't blame him too much. I thought Devontae Parker had a pretty big game. That's really all there was to it, though. The Bills controlled this game for the most part. I mean, for the whole game, like we kind of expected there. But I'm glad to see what Josh Allen has for us there. The Broncos and the Vikings, a wild game. If you follow us on Twitter, I was covering this game most of the day there, for the early window games. And the Vikings, the way they started this game, just poorly coached. You'll just say in general, the team started pretty poorly all around. And yeah, you could say that, but I think the coaching staff, mainly the offensive coaching staff, really set this team up to fail early. Not trying to take any credit away from the Broncos. They played lights out. Courtland Sutton's my guy. That guy's a beast. Brandon Allen was making some good throws, some tight window throws into good coverage. They were smart in the first half. Defensive players were stepping up. Shelby Harris had a game. Everybody was stepping up. But the Vikings, the way they started was like, all right, we're a lot better than the Broncos. We're going to go in here and dink and dunk and run the ball, and we're going to win on defense. And that sets them up to fail because once you get down, which was what happened, it's hard to run the ball when you're down by so much because you run the clock, and they needed more clock. Obviously, at the very end, they wanted more clock to run, but for the most part in the game, so you can't use your best player, Dalvin Cook. You're setting it up so everybody in the world, not just the Broncos, everybody in the world knows you're throwing the ball. When your offense line isn't the strongest part of your team, and when Kirk Cousins is under pressure, it's hard for any quarterback. So you pretty much set them up to fail. So it was kind of hard to do pretty much anything at that point. Early in the game too, they had a third and a long yard. It was a yard and a half almost, and they give the ball to C.J. Ham, and then C.J. Ham at that point has more touches than Dalvin Cook, which is pure stupidity. It's just pure stupidity. At that moment, if you got inches to go or less, or you're on the goal line at the end zone with less than a yard to go, that's where you give it to your fullback. But it was just pure stupidity. The entire first half, there was one throw further than 10 yards, and that play was called back. It was a completion to Diggs downfield. It was called back. So really, they had zero throw attempts more than 10 yards. And if you didn't watch the game, you would think, well, Cousins got to throw the ball downfield. But if you watch the game, you know it was not Kirk Cousins' fault. They had specific play designs early that was just one-read plays. This is where you're throwing to no matter what. I know that for a fact. And Cousins he was 7 for 8, 58 yards, 56 yards in the first half. I mean, you got to let the guy play. You can't turn this guy into a one-read quarterback. Since when was that their offense? They thought they got too cocky. They thought they were going to go in there and beat the Broncos' ass because they're better, plain and simple. In the second half, they kind of let their ball players ball, really. They let Kirk Cousins throw the ball downfield. He had an insane second half. They tried to get Dalvin Cook involved where they weren't going to waste time. That worked out. They got Stephon Diggs going. I mean, you see his speed downfield, his ability to come up clutch. I think the clutch moment was they had 4th and 1. They snuck Kirk Cousins up the middle for a first. They got on the ball, and they launched it to Diggs. That was kind of the play. But the most beautiful play of the game was the touchdown throw to Diggs. Cousins rolling out to his left, kind of turning, throwing, launching it. Perfect ball in stride. Diggs full speed. So, the Vikings came back and won because it's plain and simple. They have a lot more talent than the Broncos. They have a lot more talent than a lot of teams in the NFL. But they just can't stay consistent enough, and it starts with their coaching staff. The Broncos, I'm not trying to take any credit away, but they played a great game. They have ball players here and there. They got guys they don't expect to do a whole bunch to step up more and more. They were coached well in the first half, except for they got a fumble on a kickoff return and went through an interception. I think you just run the ball, take the field goal. That was the only mistake in the first half by the coaching staff. Second half, I disagree strongly with the coaching staff, kind of what they did there. They had missed a field goal late. I think it was the fourth quarter, and they kind of just they didn't waste any time doing it too. I think they kicked it with about 12 seconds on the play clock, and I didn't like that at all. And a lot of the end arounds to tight ends, I think they were getting too fancy when him just throwing from the pocket, Brandon Allen that is, was kind of just working. Credit to the Vikings for coming back. That's tough to do. Obviously, teams were 0-99 for the last, how many years. So that's really tough to do. And the Vikings, me being a fan for a long time, they never come back at any time. So that was impressive, but it's a little disappointing how they start, and it worries me with their coaching staff for the most part. At the end of the game, the Broncos had a chance to score. They converted a bunch of fourth downs. That was great. Xavier Rhodes was absolutely terrible. They put Jerron Kersey, backup safety, in. He's playing corner. He was targeted 5 times. He gave up 0 catches, was clutch on that last play of the game. In that last play of the game, I actually thought Noah Fant caught the ball. And so that was wild. I thought he caught it. He got away with a big time push off too. That's probably the worst one I ever seen too. They let that go and could have cost it, but it is tough to call that in that situation. That was a great game though. It was a great game, entertaining game, crazy comeback. Next game was the Saints and the Bucks. I picked the Bucks to win this game. It was my upset of the week. Really didn't doubt the Saints at all. Like going forward, just this 1 week thing. I thought the Bucks could win with Marshawn Lattimore out. And they couldn't do it. Jameis Winston couldn't execute. They had no running game because they couldn't run the ball because they got down so much so early. The Saints, bounced back. They took advantage of the weaknesses of the Buccaneers defense. They realized that, they got Kamara going, which they haven't really been getting him going recently. I know he was hurt for a bit, but it's good to see him going. Michael Thomas dominant once again. I think the Marcus Williams pick 6 is kind of what did it. What kind of caused everything there. Just the meltdown, kind of game over at that point. So it was a great game without Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints defense. So that was very impressive. Jameis Winston, that'll be it for him in Tampa. I'm not talking about the rest of the year, but I know he has an ankle injury. I don't think it's serious, but I'm just talking about the future. Bruce Arians will go elsewhere. The guy has proven to consistently turn the ball over. So enough is enough. They're going to look for their future quarterback. It's a game where you just can't turn the ball over like that. You just can't do it. And I trusted him not. I thought maybe 2 was kind of the max, and 4 picks. It's just rough. I don't know if there's any bright spot of the Bucs this week. Devin White seems like he's flying around, getting better each week. So it's about it. It's about it. The Saints were just completely dominant in this game. It's a team that's definitely capable of winning it all this year. And the same exact scoreline here, and same exact thing. I picked the Redskins to win. Thought I was getting a little creative with this one, like the last one. I thought people were doubting Haskins too much. I thought he can play a good game here, maybe even outplay Sam Darnold. Wasn't the case. Haskins didn't play all that terrible if you look at the stats, but if you watch the game, the offensive line didn't help him, and we see that video of him asking for their help, what could he do to help them, and it was really awkward. It was a really awkward moment. I think that most linemen thought he was kind of being an asshole, which I don't know if he was. I think he was kind of just trying to figure out what could we do here. But I think, there was kind of a mixed feelings on what he was actually saying. So it was a very awkward moment. They got to get on the same page. They got to figure some things out. They got to revamp a lot here to make Haskins work. But what I did not like about Haskins was, kind of his pocket presence was not there. It was pretty much terrible. The way he was moving around the pocket, a lot of the sacks were on him, which he's a rookie. He's getting thrown into a bad situation. You can't have a takeaway for future off of that. So it's understandable, I guess, somewhat. He's better on the run, so maybe that's what he's trying to do. We've seen what he can do on the run. We've seen it at Ohio State. That's what kind of makes me, games like the Northwestern game where he's constantly rolling out of the pocket and just slinging the ball on the run off 1 foot just looks so effortless, so beautiful. And that's what makes you like the guy more. But I think he's kind of trying to do that a little too much, and the way he goes about it sometimes doesn't really work out. They're gonna need some better tackle play. They almost need to change the scheme. They need to be able to roll him out, and you can't really roll him out sometimes with this offensive line. So I really think they need a whole new coaching staff. They're gonna have to focus on offensive line if they can't get Trent Williams going. Even him, he wasn't a guarantee to stay healthy anyways. But the credit to the Jets, the defense stepped up. This game even felt a bigger win than 34-17, honestly. Jamal Adams was everywhere. Sam Darnold played a really good game except for the 1 interception. He's due for one of those really bad ones off the back foot. That's my problem. Those will always be there. Those will always be there. He's not going to all of a sudden just not throw it off his back foot up in the air like that. Maybe cut down on him a little bit. But it was a good game for the Jets, a game that, being in put myself in that organization. We need to win this game. We have to win this game. So it's a game they should win, really, even though I picked the Redskins so they can bounce back. Thought they would do a little better in the pressure department on the defensive side. 1 week they look great. They should be great. So I don't know. It's a messy situation for the Redskins. Not much I can say about that one. The Falcons and the Panthers. The Falcons win back-to-back games against two pretty darn good teams. The Saints, a very good team. The Panthers, been pretty solid this year. The Falcons defense, I have no idea what's going on. They switched the coaching staff around. Could that really be it? Maybe, I guess so. Maybe. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, they get Adrian Claiborne's been a beast. The last couple weeks. So he's really getting going. The whole defense is, though. The secondary was just terrible. The worst in football for the majority of the year, and they're getting going here. The offense played good. It's great to see Calvin Ridley getting going. The Panthers, what's the storyline here? Well, you can't throw that many interceptions. I still believe in Kyle Allen, but you can't throw that many interceptions. But story is they got down too much too early. Kind of the storyline of a lot of teams and probably more teams to come. Especially, it's frustrating. The Panthers, they could be so much better. They need to go out and get some more talent because they're better. They're probably better than they should be. Get Kyle Allen thrown in there at quarterback, and DJ Moore is basically their only receiver. I know they got other guys that can play. I'm well aware Curtis Samuels is solid, but they're really the only guy that can really take over, and maybe not even that. DJ Moore. It's pretty much Christian McCaffrey has to carry this team, and when you're down by this much, you can't really use the running back all that much. They still do because he's the best player on the field. It's rough. It's rough. And the offensive line played pretty poorly. That's kind of how I expected the offensive line this year. It kind of shows up in glimpses here and there. How's it going to be the rest of the year? You can't put too much blame on the defense. They're put in a very tough situation. Wish they got a little more of pass rush. It should be somewhat of enough for the amount of time they're on the field, though. It's just a rough game. The Falcons look like a new team. That could be a very negative thing if you're a Falcons fan. It's good to see. It's gotta be good to see at the same time, but are they going to start winning now? They're going to win most of the rest of their games. Even if they win all of them, they're still not going to make the playoffs in this crazy good NFC. That means they're going to get a mediocre pick. That means if they're that good at the end of the year, they're going to keep the coaching staff that probably should be let go anyway. It might be a bad thing that this is happening. Honestly, it's weird to say, but it really might be. But we'll see what they can do going forward. Now I don't know if I should be picking. As soon as I pick the Falcons, they'll kind of go back to the old ways. So I have no idea here, but that's an impressive game. Impressive team right now. Really is beating the Saints and the Panthers. Not only two really good teams, two rival teams. So very impressive. Both away too. Wow, it's just mind blown by that. And just unreal how good this Ravens team is. The best team in football right now. I don't know how you if anybody says they're not, I really don't see what your reasoning would be here. They go play what's supposed to be a playoff team at least in the Texans, and they just absolutely dominate them 41-7. There's really not much to go over in this game. It was just pure domination. I hate the missed PI call early. Humphrey on DeAndre Hopkins. It could have shifted some things around, but it didn't decide anything. It was a pure dominated game. There's just, without J.J. Watt, there's just not enough defense in the Texans. Even with J.J. Watt, it would be much better, but still there's probably not enough, honestly. They got situations everywhere. Just keep, they trade for Garyon Conley, and you're signing Vernon Hargreaves. It's a little messy. It looks a little messy because it is very messy. And just the score only 7 points is rough. And I've been talking about the Ravens' defense, not only their offense, but their defense is going to get better and better each week. Probably my favorite defensive coaching staff, defensive system. And I've decided, I came up with that last year, how I saw them play in the second half of the season. The talk of last year was the Bears defense. Now we talk about the Ravens defense. They were right there with the Bears. The second half of the season, the Ravens actually could have been the best, and we're starting to see it come back a little bit. They lost Darius Smith. They had to make some adjustments, and they had changes in their secondary, and now we're starting to see it. It's ridiculous. They have a limited rotation, and that's what I love. They did a very good job drafting depth in rotation, guys. It's good to see Tyus Bowser going. It's good to see Jalen Ferguson going. Matthew Judon, who's kind of their known pass rusher, had an elite football game yesterday. Dominance. The secondary looks good. Josh Bynes, you see the reason they traded Kenny Young They know exactly what they're doing in the front office and on the coaching staff on the field with that defense. They know exactly, better than anybody. It's a dominant performance. You get Mark Ingram going in the pass game. You get Gus Bus going on the ground game. It's just, the receivers honestly could play a little better. You got guys stepping up, good rotation stepping up. It's a spot where, you think some of these young guys will be, turn into that top tier potential. But imagine if they had like a legit number one receiver. I know they do. They have that guy for the future. But yeah, this team's just scary good. The Texans, I didn't expect this bad, but I do expect Bill O'Brien to kind of the game plan and the team kind of the fold under this type of game, and that's why. I talked about it earlier in the year that I definitely think they can make the playoffs. They definitely should make the playoffs, but I just don't trust the team in the big games in the playoff. They have the talent. They have Deshaun Watson, who I love. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They got talent here and there. I just don't trust the teams in this type of situations, big games like this. Can you come back from losing 41-7? Not in terms of the rest of the regular season making the playoffs. This happening really has to have you doubting them. Like this team isn't ready to win a Super Bowl, and Bill O'Brien's out there making trades to win a Super Bowl this year. This team is nowhere near ready to win a Super Bowl right now. They just got completely out-teamed to a team in the AFC that is just plain and simple a lot better than them. And the Texans are supposed to be a very good team, and I still think they're a good team. It's just very tough, but just. I hyped up the Ravens for a long time, but I'm still impressed with this team. I am beyond impressed. It's just a very entertaining team. The Cardinals and the Niners. The Cardinals start off super fast. That's where I'm kind of worried about the Niners. If you remember my score predictions where I predicted games, but I also argue both sides. How could the Cardinals win? And my reasoning was last time they played, the Cardinals actually were able to score on a very good Niners defense that most teams really struggle to score on. Even the Seahawks, that took overtime. Really good teams couldn't do it. And the reason the Niners won the first time was because Jimmy G played his best game of the season. Can he do it again? It might be tough to do it again. And that was kind of my side for the Cardinals, even though I did pick the Niners because they're the better team. They're at home. And we kind of saw that early. The offense couldn't do much for the Niners. Jimmy G wasn't doing much. And the Cardinals were still able to find ways to score on this Niners defense, which is impressive. But then Jimmy G started turning up. He still had, I still hate the 2 interceptions, red zone interceptions. The one to Jordan Hicks he just gave it right to him. And that's still, there's 2 things that really scare me about this Niners team. Thinking Super Bowl, Super Bowl long term. It's a great team, a very impressive team, very good team. But what scares me is Jimmy G's consistency. I know he can play great. He had mixed. In this game, playing like an elite at times, and then just real bad, and then the health. You see guys going down like crazy, so it's tough. But it's a good comeback, very good comeback there, and way to execute down the line. Obviously, the score was a little closer than the way it ended up. Don't agree with Chandler Jones. I thought it was actually for the most part, a pretty well coached game for Vance Joseph. But then you got Chandler Jones dropping back in coverage in the middle of the field, covering a running back, which kind of costed the game there. And then they have the fumble when they get the ball back. But the Cardinals got some offense. They got a bright future. Niners get another win. Huge game against the Packers next week. I have no idea who I'm picking. This morning I took a look at the Week 12 schedule. It's the toughest week to pick. I think we've said that a couple times about weeks in the past. Week 12, so many games that are just so tough to pick. Can't wait for that game for the Niners. It was a good come from behind win for them. They got to get healthy. The Bengals and the Raiders, it was odd because you see my score predictions here on YouTube. You get Junior's on Patreon. And we both had the Raiders winning. I had a big amount of points for the Raiders, and Junior had a 17-7 Raiders win. I thought right away that stood out to me. I thought that was very odd. But I was kind of thinking, maybe they know they're better. They get up and they just kind of run the clock. So maybe he's onto something, and he was onto something. 17-10, so he was 3 points off. A little scary early. It was a little weird because Derek Carr was playing great, and it just felt like they could have scored more points. It felt like they could have scored a lot more points. So I'm hoping that it was just kind of the focus was to run the clock. The focus was, we don't want to get anybody hurt here. It very well could have been the focus. It's not a bad idea. I'm hoping that was it, because if they're able to play, if Derek Carr is able to play that good and they just can't score on the Bengals, then we got a problem, but I'm not worried at all about it. But something that kind of a little bit sticks in the back of your mind a little bit, but I think they were kind of just what I said, focused on just getting out of there with the W. They knew they had to control the game. Defense stepped up when they needed to. You expect it against the Bengals. Max Crosby was absolutely down. I mean, this guy's going to be just unreal. He's going to be unreal. And he was one of my sleepers in the draft, and it was a great draft pick. I did worry about him kind of going this 4-3 defense, though, because pretty thin dude, not a lot of strength. They put strength on him, and I mean it's incredible what he's able to do. Now they're even sliding him in on the inside. He's facing double teams in there too. He gets 4 sacks in the game. Just the technique is just on. It's right there. It's the guy could be a superstar pass rusher. He really could be. It's unbelievable. So big game for him. The Raiders, impressive team recently, and people will say they barely beat the Bengals. I don't really care. I really don't care. It's an impressive team. Obviously, they'll be rooting for. Well, it doesn't really. They don't have to root for anybody tonight. Just keep playing, keep winning. But if the Chiefs do lose, it's looking like the Raiders could sneak up and win that division. So that's interesting. But way to finish that one off. A little scary at times, but not worried. Patriots Eagles, a strange game here, a defensive game. Especially with the Eagles, kind of their defense have been letting up a lot through the air. Tom Brady was short in a lot of throws, not playing his best game. Obviously, the left side of the line's really struggling, mainly the left tackle. They just couldn't really get anything going on offense. Their identity is not offense anymore. It's pretty weird. It takes Edelman, trick play Edelman throw for a touchdown to be the difference pretty much here. But the same thing, we talk about Brady missing some throws, the same thing on the other side, and I think it was even worse. Carson Wentz missed some very, very easy and crucial throws, and there's always excuses. There's excuses where guys are hurt on the offensive line, there's excuses where there's no receivers. I mean, it's legitimate. Yeah, those guys should be better. They need more help, but, I mean, these are simple throws that this guy needs to make, and you can't expect this guy to have, because when they're fully healthy, maybe not me, I'd say close, but most people say they have the number one offensive line. So you basically are saying this guy needs the number one offensive line for him to be good. I mean, that's a problem to me. He's even when the pocket's collapsing, he's not getting the ball up high enough. He's sometimes he tries to sidearm throws that I just don't agree with the decision to do it. Like, I just don't understand what he's trying to do, and just missing easy out routes, easy slants, a lot of tip balls. He took some sacks. Yeah, the pressure was getting to him. There was some bad blocking, but he took some. This was a really bad game for Carson Wentz, and some people are kind of saying, yeah, he was off, but no, it was a very, very bad game for him. And the storyline is he makes a good throw off his back foot at the end that Aguilar should catch. It's a tougher catch than you think, but an NFL receiver, yeah, you should catch it, but that's not the reason they lost the game or didn't tie the game at all. It's just not. Carson Wentz has got to be better than that. Just not enough offense there. Out of the two teams, who do you expect to have more offense? Yeah, it's the Patriots, so they were pretty disappointing. It was a weird game. A lot of defense. The guys were open, though. You talk about this Patriots defense is so good. Credit to them for holding them to 10 points. They were collapsing the pocket. Credit to them. I like their secondary a lot, but guys were open. The Patriots were easily beatable in this game. The Eagles couldn't get it done, and this would have been a big-time win. No matter how they played, if they somehow pulled it off at the end, it's just a big-time win. Couldn't do it. The Patriots team, you can beat this team. It is definitely not the best team in football. I really don't think, and I'm not saying that because of one loss to the Ravens. I'm saying it because you can get after Tom Brady. He's a little off on some of his throws. I thought the running game would be a lot better this year. It's really not there, and you can run on them. And I really think, I still think it's the best secondary in football. But it's not like they're going to be locked down every game. I think you can do something on them. So, a pretty interesting game to say the least. Pretty terrible game to say the least. The last game of the night, Sunday night, between the Rams and the Bears, I predicted 17-13 Rams. And the Bears missed 2 field goals. So I would have been right there, but I guess I should expect them to miss the field goals. And we'll start with that right off the bat. The Bears are actually able to move down the field right away. Something you notice last year, too, when the game starts, they're able to move on the field pretty easily. In the second half, I feel like they always score if they start with the ball in the second half. It's because of the scripts. They come up with a script. It's pretty good, but it's all really Nagy's got. That's really all he's got. So, that's kind of tough, but they're able to do it at times, you see. But the start of the game, they're able to move down there. They missed a field goal. It's unfortunate. A turnover for the Rams. They're right back in that spot. They have 4th and 9. It would be a 47-yard field goal. You don't go for that. And people will say, well, it was actually a decent throw and maybe should have been caught. Ramsey maybe had a really good play. It's true, but you just don't go for that. You'll say, well, you can't kick the field goal. You don't trust your kicker. It's fine if you don't trust your kicker. You punt the ball. You pin them deep. You win on defense. You win the field position game. 4th and 9, even for, who's the best offense in football? I guess you can argue it, but we'll talk about the Ravens right now. The Ravens, I'm going to say, they shouldn't go for that 4th and 9 because they're probably not going to get it. So what makes you think the Bears are going to get it there? The play that happened, it's a low percentage play as well, but I think it's in. Trubisky actually threw a pretty good ball. That is unlikely. If you do that 10 times, that might be the only time. That's probably the best case scenario right there, honestly. Or a penalty, I guess, would be. But it's just not a play you go for. So I didn't agree with that. They got the ball back again, another turnover, and they get down there again, and they have 4th and 6 and a 47-yard field goal, and they kick it this time. So rewind it. Last time, it's a 47-yard field goal, 4th and 9. Let's go for it. This time, 4th and 6. Which I have to let everybody know 4th and 6 is shorter than 4th and 9. It's a 47-yard field goal. Let's kick it. After we already pretty much told our kicker, we don't trust you on the 47-yarder. We trust the 4th and 9 more with Mitchell Trubisky. But this time on a 4th and 6, a 47-yard field goal, we all of a sudden trust you again. Kicks it, misses it. Again, I punt. I played the field position game. You're outplaying the Rams right now. There's really no reason to kick the field goal or go. I wouldn't really go for a nat spot, but it's still the wrong decision. Whatever Nagy did there, he kind of flipped it. It was backwards. And that's kind of the story of the whole game was pretty much, Trubisky didn't play his worst game of the year, that's for sure, and they still only could put up 7 points, so that's a bad thing. Didn't really like what I saw from Montgomery because, there's just not enough burst out of him. Yeah, he can break a tackle or two, just not enough burst. And same thing goes for Todd Gurley. He just lost so much burst, just not the same. I think that they need to get Darrell Henderson going again. And talking about Jared Goff, he had that pick to Roquan Smith, I believe it was, just gave it right to him. And Jared Goff is just not playing good at either. And talk about how he has maybe the worst offensive line this year. He's under pressure. Well, that wasn't an excuse this game because he had all sorts of time in this game. I think they need to take more shots downfield because he has a pretty deep ball. So kind of going back to Nagy, obviously you can tell I don't agree with him a lot of the times, but it is a tough position to be in. Teams aren't afraid of the pass against the Bears. Trubisky he just has not been able to complete consistently passes, downfield. So they're not scared of that. So they're pretty much playing the run. So it's really hard position for Nagy. Like, how do you coach that game? I wouldn't want to coach that game, but a lot of there's a lot of confusing things. Like I talked about with the field goal and the speed option on 3rd and 1. Terrible call to start off with, but poorly ran too. Trubisky's running backwards, maybe completely parallel, at best. It was just poorly run, poor play call. It almost looks like that was never practiced in practice, but that is very hard to believe. Was that practice? How did they determine that's I just don't understand. I don't understand. And then it comes out that Trubisky hurt his hip. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. They're coming out that it's hip pointers. I actually had hip pointers. It's a very annoying injury. It's not the most, obviously it's not major at all, but it's a very, very annoying injury, especially as a quarterback. Think about moving your hips. But apparently that happened in the second quarter. So in the third quarter on 3rd and 1, well, first of all, you still have him in the game, but 3rd and 1, you're going to run a speed option with a quarterback that is hurt. Confusing. Very confused once again. So I don't know. It's a mess in Chicago. It's very disappointing because there was high hopes in Chicago. They had a great season last year. The defense really, they're asking a lot from the defense too, but it's not really the same. I've been saying it, since week 1. Kyle Fuller is really not at all the same last year. They won because they got a lot of turnovers. A lot were fortunate. They played really good defense, but there were lucky turnovers. It doesn't happen 2 years in a row. It doesn't. Still like the defense. If it had Akeem Hicks, I would like it a lot more because that guy's a beast. But it's just not the same there. It's very disappointing. It's very disappointing. The Rams, I didn't like some of their play calling. They were insisting on Todd Gurley, but people about McVay, people act like his play calling and his scheme or his play, the playbook, the system, it's all great, and that's what they hype up. And he deserved to get hype up last year. But the little things I like that go unnoticed, and I've seen it last year too. They're up 10-7, and they're pushing down the field in the fourth quarter. It's 5 minutes and rolling, maybe less. And they actually hurry up offense, get on the ball, run the ball to Malcolm Brown, and gets in the end zone. I love that. I absolutely love that because no other team would do that. No other team would do it. Other teams think they have to go of this a rule book. It's a fake rule book, I like to call it. Like, you have to run, if your team's up and you have to run the clock. You have no choice but to run the clock. Stupidity. You go score, you win the game. Teams just don't realize that. You go score, you win the game. So how do we throw the defense off? We know they're tired right now. How do we throw them off? How do we make this unpredictable, which is the number one rule in offense, in my opinion? Be unpredictable. We're just going to get on the ball. We're going to run the ball. And we're going to score, because scoring wins the game better than running the clock wins the game at this point, up 3. So that is the reason. Those types of plays, decisions, is why I like McVay and why I liked him last year. Play calling, very confusing at time. The fact they trust Goff as much as they did was very confusing, but the guy can throw the ball here and there. Got to stay more consistent. Obviously, they needed receivers back too. End around to Josh Reynolds at one point. This very stupid play call. It's a very stupid play call, but they get it done. They gain some momentum. Big game against the Ravens next week, but that's the recap. That's going to do it. So we're back every single week with this video. Got power rankings tomorrow, which is every single Tuesday. Can't wait to do those. Always really look forward to doing those. Look forward to our straight up picks on Tuesday nights with the other fellas of the Goat House. Most entertaining video, in my opinion, every week. I got my score predictions on Wednesday. We have all that extra content on our Patreon every single week, updated, and plenty more content. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.